Before sunrise touches the fields of northern Louisiana, a silent operation is already moving. Unmarked transport vans roll down empty highways. Officers speak in short, crisp commands. Paperwork is double-checked, restraints are secured, and radios crackle with coded updates. Their destination is a place unlike any other in America. The Louisiana State Penitentiary, better known as Angola. 18,000 acres. Farmland stretching to the horizon. A prison so large it needs its own internal camps, its own roads, and its own labor system. But the part almost no one ever sees is how inmates actually arrive here. Not the court hearings, not the sentences, but the hidden, controlled, step-by-step process that moves a prisoner from a parish jail to America's largest prison farm. Tonight, we break open the full journey, from the first piece of paperwork to the moment the transport bus pulls through Angola's gates. Before we dive in, hit like, drop a comment, and subscribe to HFD Achieve Crimes. Every bit of support helps us reveal the hidden truths behind the world's prisons and crime documentaries. Now, let's go inside. Angola Prison is not just another maximum security facility. It is a world with its own rules, its own history, and its own geography. Anyone trying to understand how inmates reach this place must first understand what this place is. Sitting on a staggering 18,000 acres of former plantation land, Angola is bordered by the Mississippi River on nearly every side. Only one main road leads in or out, a narrow stretch of Highway 66 that winds through rural Louisiana until the prison's gates rise in the distance. This isolation isn't accidental. It shapes everything about the prison, including the transfer process. Because Angola isn't near any major city, it isn't surrounded by neighborhoods or businesses. It's miles away from the nearest town and nearly an hour from Baton Rouge. The land around it forms a natural barrier, reducing escape attempts and ensuring that every vehicle entering the area is noticed immediately. Inside the grounds, the scale becomes even more apparent. Vast agricultural fields worked by incarcerated labor. Ranch operations. Multiple prison camps functioning like mini facilities. Thousands of inmates spread across units with different security levels. This design has roots in its past. Angola was built on plantation land where enslaved people once labored, and the prison's early decades carried that same brutal legacy. Overcrowding, violence, forced labor, and almost no oversight. Over the years, federal investigations, lawsuits, and reforms reshaped parts of the institution, but its size and purpose remain tied to its history. Why does this matter for transfers? Because Angola isn't a typical prison where you simply drop off inmates. Its remote location, its massive scale, and its role as Louisiana's primary long-term facility mean every transfer must be planned with high precision. Officers need time. Transportation teams need coordination. Intake staff needs space ready before a single inmate arrives. And for the inmate, it means the journey here is not quick, not simple, and not visible to the public. Before they ever step foot on Angola's soil, a long chain of decisions, documents, and approvals must fall into place, creating a system designed to move inmates quietly, safely, and under strict regulation. Before a transport van ever leaves a parish jail, a quiet but critical decision has already been made. Who is actually going to Angola? Most people believe every long-term inmate in Louisiana ends up there, but the truth is far more structured and far more selective. The process begins in courtrooms scattered across the state. A judge hands down a sentence, the gavel falls, and the inmate is escorted back to a holding cell. But that moment is only the beginning. Behind the scenes, clerks begin typing sentencing minutes, certifying orders, and assembling the legal documents that will determine where the inmate is allowed to be sent. Nothing, absolutely nothing, can move forward until these papers are finalized. Once the documents reach the Louisiana Department of Public Safety and Corrections headquarters in Baton Rouge, a specialized group of classification officers steps in. These aren't guards or wardens. They are analysts whose job is to evaluate every detail of an inmate's case. The length of the sentence, the crime of conviction, history of violence or escape attempts, medical needs, age and physical condition, mental health concerns, gang affiliations, statewide bed availability. Their task is simple in theory, difficult in practice. Determine where each person fits in Louisiana's prison system. Angola becomes the destination only for certain categories of inmates, typically those with long sentences, violent convictions, or security profiles that smaller institutions cannot safely manage. Because Angola is the largest prison in the state, it often absorbs inmates when other facilities reach capacity. At other times, it becomes the designated home for inmates who require high-security supervision or structured agricultural labor assignments. This decision-making process is not rushed. State headquarters performs a population balancing act, matching hundreds of inmates to dozens of facilities, each with different needs and limitations. An error could create overcrowding in one unit, medical strain in another, or dangerous tensions among rival groups. And so, the assessment continues until every detail is reviewed and signed off. Once Angola is selected as the final destination, the inmate enters a waiting phase inside the parish jail. This period is unpredictable. Some inmates remain only a few days, others wait weeks. The timing depends on transportation availability, paperwork speed, medical clearances, and coordination with the receiving prison. Meanwhile, the jail is responsible for securing the inmate, updating medical records, monitoring behavior, logging mental health concerns, preparing property, reporting any changes to the state. An inmate cannot simply be placed on a bus because the jail wants them gone. Louisiana's system is designed so that only headquarters, not local sheriffs, has the authority to trigger the movement. During this waiting period, Angola's own intake team is also preparing behind the scenes. Even if they don't know the inmate's name yet, they receive numbers. How many people are coming? How many beds to open? How many medical staff to schedule? How many diagnostic interviews to expect on arrival? It is a silent synchronization between institutions spread across counties and highways, all leading toward one destination. By the time the inmate is finally approved for transportation, the decision is sealed. Their path to Angola is official and unavoidable. And what comes next is the part most people never see: the preparations inside the prison farm before a single bus arrives at its gates. Long before the wheels of a prison bus touch Highway 66, an invisible system is already in motion. While the inmate waits in a parish jail cell, Angola Prison itself begins preparing for their arrival. And at a facility as massive and isolated as Angola, preparation is not optional. It is survival. At the heart of this process is the Reception and Diagnostic Center, often referred to simply as RDC. This is where every inmate entering Angola must pass before joining the general population. It is not just a building. It is a tightly coordinated network of medical staff, correctional officers, classification experts, and administrative personnel. The moment state headquarters confirms that a group of inmates is scheduled for transfer, RDC receives the first alert: the number of incoming prisoners. Names may come later, but numbers come first. This single detail begins a chain reaction. Beds must be opened in the reception dorm. Holding cells must be cleared and cleaned. Medical intake stations must be staffed and supplied. Mental health evaluators must prepare assessments. Property officers must make space for incoming belongings. And supervisors must ensure they have enough officers to monitor new arrivals. Angola cannot gamble with overcrowding. An intake unit that is understaffed or undersupplied can create chaos within minutes. That is why RDC prepares early, often adjusting scheduling, reassigning officers, or shifting inmates to other camps to free up space. While this happens inside Angola, the paperwork continues at headquarters. Every inmate's file, from sentencing minutes to medical summaries, must be verified before transport is authorized. It doesn't matter how long the inmate has been waiting. If even a single document is missing or incorrect, the transfer is paused. Louisiana law does not allow Angola to receive anyone who has not been legally cleared. The inmate, meanwhile, remains unaware of most of this activity. All they know is that their property is being inventoried again. Their identity is rechecked. Their medical file is updated. Their behavior is monitored more closely. These signals often mean movement is coming, but only jail staff and transportation officers know for certain. Back at Angola, classification personnel begin the invisible sorting. This early classification doesn't determine the inmate's long-term placement, but it does determine the restraint level required during transport, whether they must be kept separate from certain inmates, whether they have gang conflicts, whether they need medical accommodations, whether they require additional supervision. This prevents surprises once the bus arrives at the jail. Louisiana transportation units do not guess. They prepare. Medical staff at parish jails complete their own portion of the process. Every inmate must be medically cleared to travel. No exceptions. This includes documentation of chronic illnesses, prescriptions, mobility issues, infectious conditions, recent injuries, disability accommodations. If a medical risk appears, the transfer is delayed or rerouted to a medical unit before Angola ever sees the inmate. And then there's the final 24 to 48-hour window, the period where everything tightens. Jail staff prepare property. Officers collect documents and check restraints. Transport teams receive routes and assignments. Angola updates bed counts and intake schedules. Headquarters finalizes the transport manifest. This manifest is the official record. DOC numbers, names, security notes, medical concerns, and movement dates. It is sent to everyone who must know and no one who doesn't. Transfer times are never made public for safety reasons. By the time the sun sets the night before transport, the machine is fully in motion. Radios are tested. Alternate routes are reviewed. And any last-minute updates, from documents to medical notes, are pushed to the transport team. Inside the jail, the inmate realizes the moment has finally come. Inside Angola, officers stand ready. And somewhere between the two, the road that connects them waits in the dark. This is the final calm before the journey begins. The next chapter covers the moment everything becomes real, the transport itself. Before the first birds begin to move across the Louisiana sky, the transfer process is already underway. For the inmate, it begins with a simple instruction, often delivered quietly through the bars. Pack up. You're leaving in the morning. There is no explanation, no time given, no destination confirmed. Some already suspect where they're going. Others don't know until they step onto the vehicle. But inside the parish jail, the countdown has officially begun. Officers begin their own pre-movement checks. A supervisor confirms the transport manifest. The inmate's property is sealed. Restraints are inspected one by one. Handcuffs, leg irons, waist chains. Radio batteries are tested. Emergency protocols are reviewed. Every officer participating in the transfer receives a briefing, including the number of inmates being moved, security levels, medical notes, any separation requirements, the exact route to Angola, backup detours if conditions change. This briefing is not optional. On rural Louisiana roads, surprises can turn dangerous quickly. Meanwhile, the inmate is brought to a staging area, usually a small, secured cell near booking. Their identity is verified through fingerprints or photographs. Their property is tagged. Their uniform is checked. If they require medication, staff confirm what must travel with them. Nothing is rushed, but nothing is delayed unnecessarily. Inmate movement is designed to be quiet, orderly, and controlled. Then, sometime before sunrise, the transport vehicle arrives. It might be a chain bus. The long white bus is outfitted with security cages and reinforced windows. Or it might be a smaller transport van for high-risk or medically fragile inmates. Either way, the moment it pulls into the Sally Port, everything becomes more serious. Officers escort inmates out one at a time. There is no talking, no looking around, only the sound of chains moving across concrete. Each inmate is searched, secured, and placed into their assigned seat. Those with separation orders sit apart. Those with medical needs are positioned with extra monitoring. High-security inmates are placed near additional officers. Once the doors close, the environment changes completely. Inside the bus, the air is still. Seats are narrow. Movement is restricted. Inmates stare ahead, knowing they're going somewhere they cannot avoid. Outside, transport officers gather for a final check. Tire pressure, fuel levels, radio channels, weather updates, road conditions, traffic alerts, backup units on standby. Only when every point is confirmed does the lead officer give a signal. The bus rolls forward, slowly at first, then onto the open highway. The convoy's route is deliberate. Transport teams avoid crowded areas, school zones, and high-traffic intersections. They take rural highways whenever possible, staying away from predictable patterns. Stops are minimized, and in many cases, eliminated entirely. Throughout the drive, officers communicate by radio, checking in at preset intervals. Command centers monitor their location, weather alerts, and any unexpected situations. Louisiana takes no chances with this journey. Many of the inmates being transported have long sentences, violent histories, or escape attempts in their past. The risk is small, but never zero. For the inmate, the journey is long and silent. Fields roll by. Small towns fade into the distance. The Mississippi River appears and disappears behind tree lines. And as the hours pass, many realize the reality of where they are headed, a place far larger, far older, and far more isolated than any jail cell they have known. Eventually, the signs change. Roads narrow, forests grow thicker, and the closer the bus gets, the more the landscape begins to reflect Angola's immense scale. The destination is unavoidable now. The gates of America's largest prison farm are waiting just ahead. In the next chapter, we'll follow the moment the bus enters Angola and what happens in the first few minutes after arrival, a process even more tightly controlled than the journey itself. After hours of travel through rural Louisiana, the landscape begins to shift. Farmland stretches endlessly. The Mississippi River runs quietly in the distance. And then the transport team sees it, the long approach road leading toward the Louisiana State Penitentiary. For the officers, this moment signals the most delicate phase of the entire journey. For the inmate, it marks a point of no return. The bus slows as it approaches a towering security gate. Cameras track every angle. Armed officers monitor the entrance. No vehicle enters without being logged, checked, and verified. A transport officer steps out with a clipboard. Another confirms radio codes. Only after approval from the gate tower does the large steel barrier rise. The bus moves forward. Inside Angola's perimeter, the world feels different. Miles of open land replace the tight walls of parish jails. Fields of crops stretch across the horizon. Guard towers stand at strategic points, overlooking everything. This is not the type of prison most inmates have experienced. This is a self-contained, fully functioning world. The first stop is the reception and diagnostic center, the entrance point for every inmate who enters Angola. The area is secured by multiple fences, locked gates, and a team prepared specifically for intake days. Before any inmate steps off the bus, Angola's staff position themselves with military-like precision. Perimeter officers monitor the yard. Intake officers line up along the walkway. Medical personnel stand ready. Property teams prepare secure bins. Classification staff assemble paperwork. Everything is planned. Everything is timed. There is no improvisation. The bus doors open, and the first inmate is called forward. Their restraints are checked again. Their identity is confirmed again. Their behavior is monitored closely. They step off the bus under the watch of multiple officers and are directed toward a controlled path leading into the intake facility. Inside RDC, the environment shifts from the open fields to a tightly regulated indoor process. Every new arrival follows the same sequence. 1. The strip and search procedure. Inmates are brought into a secure room where they undergo a full search. Weapons, contraband, or hidden items are eliminated before the intake progresses. It is one of the most controlled parts of the process. 2. Medical screening. Nurses record vital signs, check medication lists, and note medical conditions. Any inmate requiring urgent care is redirected immediately. Angola's medical unit must know exactly who they're receiving. 3. Mental health assessment. A short interview determines whether the inmate has psychological concerns, suicidal ideation, or needs immediate mental health care. This assessment influences their short-term placement. 4. Identification and documentation. Photographs are taken. Fingerprints are matched. Wristbands are issued. State files are updated with Angola-specific data. 5. Property processing. Inmate property is inventoried, stored, or disposed of according to state policy. Only authorized items enter Angola. 6. Classification interview. This determines where the inmate will live. A camp dorm, a work unit, a medical wing, or an extended lockdown cell. Gang affiliations, enemy concerns, escape histories, and behavioral notes all influence placement. This stage is extremely important. Misplacing an inmate with a rival group or placing someone vulnerable in a dangerous environment can create immediate conflict. As the intake unfolds, officers maintain a firm but controlled atmosphere. This is not a rushed environment. Every inmate is processed one at a time. Every detail is logged. Outside, new groups wait under supervision. Inside, the next steps unfold with the same precision as the first. For the inmate, the emotions vary: anxiety, fear, resignation. For the staff, it is routine but never taken lightly. Angola's massive scale requires accuracy, efficiency, and constant awareness. Once intake is complete, the inmate is not taken directly to general population. They are housed in a temporary reception dorm, still isolated from the main camps. Here, they wait for their final placement inside one of Angola's many units. Some will be assigned to agricultural fields, some to industrial work programs, some to restricted housing, some to medical facilities. Each path reflects the complex structure of America's largest prison farm. And as the sun sets across the fields, the intake team prepares for the next shift, because at Angola, the movement never stops, and every arrival is the beginning of a much longer story. Once intake is complete and the inmate is placed in the temporary reception dorm, the real transition begins. This is the moment where Angola stops being a distant destination on a map and becomes a lived reality, a place where thousands of men serve some of the longest sentences in America, often for the rest of their lives. Inside the reception dorm, the atmosphere is tense but controlled. Inmates wait in assigned bunks, listening for their names as classification officers move through files, notes, assessments, behavioral flags, and medical reports. Everything gathered during the intake process now shapes the inmate's long-term placement. Angola's internal structure is unlike any other maximum security facility. It functions as a patchwork of multiple self-contained camps, each with its own population, rule sets, and daily routines. The goal of classification is to decide exactly where each inmate fits within this massive ecosystem. The first factor considered is security level. Although Angola houses all classifications from medium to extended lockdown, the prison initially treats every new arrival as a maximum security risk until the full evaluation is complete. Officers review gang affiliations, escape attempts, or violence history. Enemies already housed inside Angola. Past behavior at other facilities. Protective custody requests. Disciplinary patterns in parish jails. This step determines whether the inmate goes to a general population camp, a restricted housing unit, or a specialized supervision area. Next comes medical and mental health placement. Angola's population includes many elderly inmates serving life sentences, along with men requiring chronic care, disability accommodation, or ongoing treatment. Medical evaluations during intake are used to determine whether an inmate needs a bed in the medical wing, cannot participate in physical labor, requires proximity to infirmary personnel, must be placed in a non-strenuous work assignment. Because Angola is a working prison farm, these assessments are essential. Then comes the part Angola is historically known for: labor assignment. Angola remains one of the last large-scale prison farms in America, where incarcerated men cultivate crops, tend livestock, and perform physical labor across thousands of acres. Work assignments vary, but many inmates, unless medically exempt or restricted, are eventually placed in field crews. The prospect of work assignment creates mixed reactions inside the reception dorm. Some men are familiar with Angola's labor structure. Others understand it only from stories or news reports. But everyone knows that work at Angola is not symbolic. It is physically demanding and deeply connected to the prison's historical identity. Once classification is finalized, officers begin calling names. Each inmate receives housing assignment, a designated camp, work status, pending or assigned, medical instructions, orientation details, rules and expectations specific to their unit. From this point forward, Angola no longer treats them as a new arrival. They are part of the daily movement of the prison farm. Transportation officers escort inmates in small groups to their assigned camps. The journey may be short, but it is the moment where the reality of Angola becomes fully visible. The stretch of fields where work crews gather. The guard towers rising over open land. The long roads connecting camp to camp. Tractors, livestock pens, and agricultural equipment. Older inmates moving with practiced routine. Younger inmates adjusting to their new environment. This is the world within a world many journalists have described. An institution so large that each camp feels like its own small town, yet every movement is governed by strict rules. Upon arrival at the new camp, the inmate undergoes a smaller, secondary orientation. Officers explain dorm rules, yard schedules, meal times, and expectations. For many inmates, this is where the long sentence truly becomes real. The walls of the county jail are gone. The small cell is gone. In its place is a huge, sprawling complex where thousands of men live, work, and age. The first night in the assigned camp is often quiet. Some inmates stare at the ceiling, trying to process the reality of a prison farm where their days will soon be defined by routine and labor. Others talk to long-term residents, learning what life is like here, what to avoid, and what rules carry the most weight. Angola is not a facility someone passes through. It is a place where inmates settle, serve decades, and build entire lives behind the fences. And for many, their first days mark the beginning of a long, unchanging rhythm, one shaped by the structure, history, and isolation of America's largest prison farm. In the next chapter, we explore the daily life inside Angola, from work crews to the unwritten codes that govern inmate culture. By the time an inmate reaches their assigned camp, Angola's world begins to reveal itself in pieces, not through official orientation, but through the routines, sounds, and movements that define each day. Angola is not a prison where inmates remain locked in cells around the clock. It is a working environment, a place where structure and labor shape nearly every hour. The wake-up call. Before dawn, long before the sun lifts over the fields, the camp begins to stir. Officers move through the dorm with flashlights, calling out for roll. Beds are checked. Names are marked. The count must be exact. No errors. Outside, the sound of tractors or trucks warming up echoes across the yard. It is a reminder that Angola is not just a prison. It is a functioning agricultural operation. Breakfast is quick. Lines move steadily, watched closely by officers. Meals are simple. Nothing extravagant, nothing wasted. The work crews. For many inmates, the next step is one of the defining elements of Angola, field work. Most first-time arrivals have heard about Angola's work crews long before they arrive. But seeing it is different. Field teams line up in the yard, supervised by mounted officers or armed staff positioned strategically across the fields. Long rows of inmates stand shoulder to shoulder, waiting for instructions. Some crews cultivate crops. Some tend livestock. Others repair fences, clear brush, or maintain the vast acreage surrounding the prison. The work is demanding. Louisiana heat can be intense. The fields stretch far, and the labor follows a strict pace. But not everyone works the fields. Inmates may also be assigned to industrial shops, maintenance teams, laundry units, kitchen duty, facility repair, educational programs, chapel or library services, medical support roles. Assignments vary based on ability, behavior, and medical clearance. Even so, the field crews remain the symbol most associated with Angola, a visible reminder of the prison's past and present. The internal rhythm of Angola. As the day passes, each camp develops its own rhythm. Movement to and from work sites, call-outs for medical appointments, yard time, chapel visits, educational classes, inmate organizations, vocational programs. Everything follows schedules that have existed for decades, refined through trial, error, and necessity. But beneath the official routines lies a deeper structure, the unwritten inmate codes, the unwritten rules. Every long-standing prison has its own social framework, but Angola's is unique because of its age, size, and long-term population. Some men have lived here for decades, some for life. New inmates quickly learn who they can speak to, who they should avoid, which dorm rules matter most, which areas require extra caution, how to settle disputes quietly, how to navigate conflicts without escalating. There are men in Angola who have become unofficial historians of the prison, passing down knowledge about safety, survival, and respect. For younger or newly arrived inmates, these lessons can determine how smoothly they transition into camp life. Work, rest, and repetition. After hours in the heat or inside industrial shops, inmates return to their dorms. Dinner is served. Counts are taken again. Evenings are quieter, but not idle. Some write letters. Some watch the limited television available. Some play chess or dominoes. Some simply reflect on the day. The sound of officers conducting rounds becomes background noise, weaving into the rhythm of a prison farm that never truly sleeps. The psychological shift. The first days inside Angola mark a psychological turning point. For many inmates, the reality of their sentence begins to settle. This is not a short-term facility. This is not a place where people rotate quickly. Angola is where men grow older, work for decades, build routines, develop relationships, face the weight of time. The combination of labor, isolation, and structured schedules creates a lifestyle distinct from any county jail or smaller prison. Some adapt, others struggle, but everyone feels the change, a world that runs on order. By the end of the first week, it becomes clear that Angola is a prison built on order, strict, controlled, and deeply rooted in the institution's long history. Every movement is monitored. Every schedule is enforced. Every inmate becomes part of a system far larger than themselves. Life at Angola is not defined by chaos. It is defined by routine, a routine shaped by decades of policies, labor, isolation, and internal culture. In the next chapter, we go deeper into the work structure, exploring how Angola's agricultural and industrial systems operate, and why they remain central to the identity of America's largest prison farm. If there is one aspect of Angola that defines it more than any other, it is the sheer scale of its work system. Angola is not just a prison. It is a working farm, a livestock operation, a manufacturing hub, and one of the largest pieces of cultivated land in the entire United States, all run through the labor of incarcerated men. From the moment a new inmate steps into their assigned camp, the work structure begins to shape their days, routines, and identity inside the facility. The heart of Angola, the fields. The largest workforce in the prison is the field crews, long lines of inmates working under the heat, often supervised by mounted officers or armed guards observing from strategic positions. In the early morning, when the fog still clings to the fields, the crews gather in rows. For many, this is their daily reality. Plowing land, planting and harvesting crops, clearing brush, maintaining hundreds of acres, tending livestock and horses, repairing fencing along the farm lines. The fields stretch far, swallowing sound and perspective. Inmates work in coordinated movements, steady, methodical, repetitive. This is not light work. It is physically demanding, shaped by Louisiana's climate. Summer heat, winter cold, mud, dust, and the endless horizon. But it is also the core of Angola's identity. Generations of inmates have stood in these fields, some for decades. Industrial shops, the other workforce. Not every inmate goes to the fields. Angola also operates extensive industrial and vocational programs, a system that keeps the prison functioning internally while reducing reliance on outside contractors. These shops include carpentry and woodwork, metal fabrication, automotive repair, license plate manufacturing, sewing and textile shops, printing operations, welding units, commissary packaging, food processing and butchering, furniture production. Many of Angola's internal needs, furniture, clothing, repair parts, signage, tools, are made by inmates inside these industrial zones. The work is structured and supervised, but it also offers skills. Some inmates spend so many years in these roles that they become experts, teaching newer prisoners how to operate machines, how to weld, how to maintain equipment. The prison as a self-contained economy. Because Angola is so geographically isolated, it must function like its own small city. The agricultural zones feed into the kitchen units. Livestock operations supply meat. Textile shops create uniforms. Utility crews repair broken water lines and electrical issues. Maintenance teams keep the aging facilities running. Everything connects. Every department relies on another. The inmate workforce is what makes the entire operation possible. Daily movement and oversight. Work crews are escorted to their assignments every morning. Officers perform counts before departure, upon arrival, during breaks, and after return. This rhythm is non-negotiable. Inmates learn quickly where to stand, how to line up, how fast to work, how to report injuries, how to recognize officer signals. There is no room for confusion in such a large-scale operation. Work can last hours, often until late afternoon. Breaks are short. Supervision is constant. Exceptions and special assignments. Medical exemptions, age limitations, and disciplinary restrictions all influence where inmates work. Older inmates, especially those who have been in Angola for decades, are often assigned to lighter duties or specialized indoor roles. Some inmates work inside the hospital, some in chapels, some in educational units, some in hospice care, one of the most unique and emotionally difficult programs in the prison, where inmates care for others who are near the end of their lives. The purpose of work. Critics say Angola's labor structure echoes its historical roots. Supporters argue it provides structure, vocational skills, and purpose in a place defined by long sentences. But regardless of viewpoint, one fact is undeniable. The work system shapes every corner of Angola. It dictates daily schedules. It structures security. It organizes inmate life. It defines the relationship between time, labor, and survival within the facility. And for the men living here, some serving 20 years, some serving life, some never leaving, the work becomes part of who they are inside America's largest prison farm. In the next chapter, we break down the security layers, surveillance systems, and high-risk protocols that keep a facility this massive under control. Running a facility as large as Angola requires a security system unlike anything found in a typical maximum security prison. With 18,000 acres of land, multiple internal camps, widespread farmland, industrial zones, and thousands of inmates spread across miles of open space, Angola's security infrastructure must operate with precision, coordination, and constant awareness. Angola does not rely on a single method of control. It relies on layers, physical barriers, human supervision, communication systems, surveillance tools, and strict protocols that work together to keep an enormous operation functioning safely. Perimeter and physical barriers. The first layer of security is the land itself. Angola is bordered on 3 sides by the Mississippi River, creating a natural barrier that makes unauthorized movement extremely difficult. On the land-facing side, fencing and controlled access roads serve as checkpoints monitored 24/7. The main entrance resembles a secure processing site more than a simple gate. Every vehicle entering and leaving is logged. License plates are recorded. IDs are verified. Deliveries are inspected. Officers stationed at the tower maintain visual oversight of all movement. Nothing, not staff vehicles, not service trucks, not transport vans, gets through without approval. Internal security zones. Inside the prison, Angola operates like a small city divided into multiple districts. Each camp has its own perimeter fencing, count rooms, control centers, and officer stations. Movement between camps is tightly controlled. Inmates do not freely travel from one area to another. Transfers between camps must be authorized and supervised. This internal zoning limits conflicts, reduces overcrowding, and allows officers to manage populations with different needs and security levels. Guard towers and patrols. Dozens of guard towers are positioned across strategic points of the prison grounds. From these elevated posts, officers maintain visual surveillance over farmland and crew lines, roadways, camp perimeters, common movement areas, recreational yards. The towers act as both deterrence and oversight, providing angle coverage that ground officers cannot achieve alone. Patrol vehicles also move along long internal roads, ensuring that no area remains unobserved for long periods. Radio units link tower officers to patrols, creating a network of constant communication. Chain of command and communication. Angola's sheer size demands a communication network that never breaks down. Each camp maintains its own control center, a small office where officers track inmate counts, work crew schedules, medical callouts, disciplinary needs, emergency notifications, shift changes. When an alert goes out, these control centers coordinate with the main command hub, allowing information to spread across miles of farmland within seconds. Even minor disruptions, a medical emergency, weather issues, or transportation delays, are managed through synchronized communication. Counts, inspections, and controlled movement. Because Angola is so large, maintaining accurate counts is one of the prison's most important responsibilities. Counts happen multiple times a day, often at moments where movement is low and officers can verify each inmate's location. Officers inspect equipment, search living areas, and monitor work crews throughout the day. Movement from dorms to fields, from fields to industrial shops, or from one camp to another is conducted through escorted lines supervised by officers positioned at intervals. Angola's routine may seem simple, but it is carefully designed to ensure that every movement is predictable, controlled, and safe. Handling high-risk inmates. Although Angola houses a wide range of security levels, certain inmates require enhanced supervision. These individuals may have histories of violence, escape attempts, gang conflicts, or disciplinary issues. High-risk inmates may be escorted by additional officers, placed in high-security dorms, monitored through closer checks, separated from specific inmate groups, housed in specialized units. These precautions are not taken lightly. In a facility this large, mismanaging even one high-risk individual can lead to major operational challenges. Surveillance technology. While Angola is best known for its vast farming operations, modern surveillance tools play a crucial role in maintaining order. Camera systems, motion monitor gates, controlled access doors, digital logs, alert-linked radios, perimeter alarms. Technology supplements human oversight but never replaces it. Officers remain the backbone of daily security, a system built on order. Angola's security model isn't defined by aggression, it is defined by structure. Predictable routines, clear lines of authority, constant communication, layered oversight. In a prison this large, chaos is the enemy. Order is the lifeline. For inmates, these layers shape every hour. For staff, they're the tools that allow Angola to operate safely despite its immense size and complex population. In the final chapter, we explore the human reality behind these walls, the long sentences, the aging population, and the day-to-day existence inside America's largest prison farm. No matter how large Angola is, no matter how many fields stretch across the horizon or how many work crews line up at dawn, the prison is ultimately shaped by one element above all others: time. Angola is a place where sentences are not measured in months or years, but in decades, lifetimes, and generations. The Louisiana Department of Corrections has long held some of the strictest sentencing laws in the United States. Because of this, Angola houses one of the highest percentages of long-term and life-sentenced inmates in the country. For many men inside these fences, this is not a temporary stop. It is their final home, aging behind the walls. Across Angola's camps, you can see the weight of time everywhere. Elderly men moving slowly across yards. Inmates pushing wheelchairs for aging friends. Long-term prisoners guiding new arrivals through dorm routines. Men who have lived in Angola longer than they lived outside. Some inmates arrived as young men. Now their hair is gray, their steps slower, their hands shaky from age. Angola has grown into a place where entire lifetimes play out inside a single institution. Routine becomes identity. For the men living here, routines create a fragile sense of stability. Morning counts, field assignments, work rotations, commissary days, chapel services, evening lockdown. Over time, these routines become something more than schedules. They become a framework for survival. Men who have served decades speak about how daily structure becomes the anchor that keeps the mind steady. In a place defined by long sentences, predictability offers a sense of control in an environment built on restriction. Communities form in small spaces. Despite Angola's size, community life is built in small circles. Bunk neighbors, work partners, fellow hobbyists, religious groups, long-term dorm friendships. These small connections create meaning in a place where outside contact may fade with time. Some inmates have limited family visitation due to distance, finances, or decades of estrangement. Inside, friendships, even quiet, unspoken ones, can become a lifeline. Reflection and reality. Inmates who have spent decades at Angola often describe a shift that happens with long-term imprisonment. The world outside moves forward, while their world repeats each day. Season after season, inmates watch the fields change color, green in spring, brown in winter. They notice the same officers, the same routines, the same walk from dorm to yard. Time passes slowly, yet the years stack quickly. Programs and purpose. To manage such long sentences, Angola operates numerous programs aimed at giving inmates a sense of direction or contribution. Literacy and GED classes. Faith-based programs. Vocational training. Hospice care assignments. Mentorship and rehabilitation groups. Agricultural and industrial certifications. Some men spend their final years working in Angola's hospice unit, caring for other inmates who are nearing the end of life. These programs bring meaning in a place where the outside world may no longer be part of the future. Discipline, structure, and survival. Angola's strict discipline system means inmates must learn when to speak, how to avoid conflict, what boundaries matter, when to walk away, how to navigate the complex social structure. For anyone serving a long sentence, survival is not just physical, it is psychological. The men who adapt often do so by embracing routine, staying focused on daily tasks, and maintaining connections that provide emotional grounding. Those who struggle face a different reality, one where the isolation, labor, and passage of time weigh heavily. The weight of a life sentence. In Angola, a life sentence means exactly what it sounds like. There is no parole for many inmates. There is no release date circled on a calendar. And that shapes everything. How they walk, how they speak, how they think, how they plan their day, how they build relationships, how they make peace with their past. For some, Angola becomes the place where they mature, reflect, change. For others, it becomes the place where they realize the full gravity of their actions and the length of their sentence. A world defined by time. When the sun sets over the vast fields, the lights across the camps flicker on. Officers begin night rounds. Inmates settle into bunks. The hum of Angola continues, steady, predictable, unchanging. For thousands of men living here, tomorrow will look very much like today, and the next day, and the next. This is the human reality inside America's largest prison farm, a place where time moves slowly, Yet life continues in quiet, often unseen ways. As the day ends over Angola's endless fields, the noise fades and the routine begins again. Work crews return, dorm lights turn on, and officers make their final rounds. For the outside world, Angola is just a headline. For the men inside, it's a place where years become decades. A world built on discipline, endurance, and survival. Transfers and intake are only the beginning. What truly shapes life here are the long days, the friendships, the struggles, and the quiet reality of serving time in a place so vast it feels like its own world. Thank you for following this journey. If you found it powerful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Stay safe, stay curious, and thank you for being part of this story.